Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the latest one-to-one digital dialogue. My name is Martin Redmayne. I'm joined today by Martin Baum, the president or chief exec of Pantaenius, the major insurance company in Hamburg. Martin, how are you this morning?
I'm very well, thank you. All good.
How's life in the German center of yachting?
I can't complain. I mean, we managed to work from home quite well, so we have best of both worlds, and so far we can count ourselves very lucky, I think.
Yeah. No, I think it's a very, very clear sign of people being able to adapt and work within this situation, and people become, in some cases, quite efficient. I think in the way they've worked and worked with the situation. So, how many people are at home? How many people are in the office?
We have two teams. At the beginning, the first wave, we had everyone at home, just the few 3 or 4 people in the office. We're normally 100 people here in Hamburg, but now we have roughly 30% at one time at the office.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So the purpose of the one-to-ones is just have a proper candid conversation or a discussion about where we're going, what we've learned, and what we can do better. So if you look back at the last 6 months specifically and the COVID period, what do you think you've learned about your business and the marketplace?
Well, I think it basically resets the whole business model a little bit if something like this happens. And so we all had to take a step back and look at what we're actually doing and how we do things. And luckily, I have, since I studied at the LSE IT Information Systems, I have since the beginning always followed a path of centralized IT system, which enabled all the offices worldwide to work on one server here remotely.
Yeah.
And so whether they actually sit in the office or sit at home, technically didn't make any difference. So luckily, we didn't have any problems to adapt to complete remote work. And I think some offices in some companies have much more problems there also because of the service and the product they deliver. But with insurance, which is a paperless product, so to say, it worked very well. So I was impressed that this actually been going so smoothly. However, of course, there are other aspects which are clear that create problems. For example, if you want to manage a claim and send a surveyor to Marina, or even just to get to your boat as an owner and so on, that was all very difficult and continues to be difficult, the traveling, the crew movements and all those things. And how then to keep the same level of service when you cannot actually go to the boats is difficult. A few things you can do remotely, but a lot of things you just have to be locally there. So I think we've been fortunate enough that we have in our claims management companies all over Europe, physical companies, and so people were able to share their jobs and move certain tasks to the people, our colleagues in Spain or in Mallorca and some in Scandinavia and so forth. So that's a good cooperation effort, teamwork that everyone pulled together, which was nice to see actually.
Yeah. Are there any situations you can see within the market that are lessons that we have learned from this year that we can actually see as being strategically positive changes for the future?
Well, I think to focus on the most important things first is, I think, one of the lessons. People tend to want to have too much sometimes. They want to be cruising through all the marinas and get the latest sightseeing tour on top of the last restaurant trip and so on. And I think it's a little bit back to the roots, and people are just happy to be on a boat.
Yes.
Stop and just being able to actually enjoy more or less the time on the boat than the whole world around. And this focus more on what yachting and boating is, I think has been a positive thing. So in other words, you didn't need to have the Saint-Tropez stop. You just were happy lying in a bay and drop your anchor and enjoy the water and the sea. And I think sometimes, less is more. And I think this is something that people really have appreciated. And I think that's also why the boating industry in general has done so well. I mean, from the German perspective, it's done incredibly well. People have been buying boats. Most of our dealers here don't have any stock anymore. Everything has been sold out on the smaller boats. The bigger boats have been used by their owners more than anything else. Finally, they come back to their assets rather than just renting them out. They say, well, you know what? I'm using my boat myself this time. Yeah. And so I think we are very fortunate to be in an industry that is providing this kind of security, because nowhere else do you have the security as this yachting. And if you leave all the lifestyle side a little bit to the side and come to the core of it, then you realize this is a very secure way of making holidays.
Yeah, I think without question, what we are seeing is sort of a resurgence of, as you say, the less is more thing. It's not about how much you spend on nightclubs or bars or restaurants in these big crowded sort of hotspots. You're getting back to the sort of the core values of actually going on a boat with your family and friends and actually just relaxing a bit more.
Exactly.
And that is the accelerator of our market value. Which I think is a huge positive. In terms of that sort of topic of more people on board or more use of the boat, does that affect the insurance market at all? With more occupancy, more use, more activity?
No, I think mostly you can say if a boat is properly used, then it's better shape than if it lies around in the marina all year round. Mind you, at the beginning, of course, during the lockdown, the boats have not been used, and we were, I think, in a position where we would have had to think very carefully how to deal with this if indeed the lockdown would have continued till the end of the year and the owners couldn't have used their boat at all. I think we would have had to look at it from an insurance perspective and maybe have talked about some laid up cover and maybe reductions in premiums, which we've done for some clients from Australia, for example, that couldn't come to Europe. But in general, in Europe, people were then at the easing of the lockdown really using their boats, and so they were all very happy. And then obviously, as we always calculate the risk over the whole year anyway, there are times where boats are laid up and times where boats are used. So I think that was all at the end of the day quite normal.
Yeah. So Martin, I always ask the question: any frustrations or concerns about the market at the moment? I know we're being very positive today, but anything that you think is something we need to focus on and change?
Yeah, I think there's definitely one thing that frustrates me always, and that has nothing to do with the pandemic. It's more or less that we are not in a position as an industry to have a precise data of all the accidents and damages that are happening on boats. And it's very hard, I think, as an industry to develop and learn from your mistakes if there's not a common data available. And yes, we have on the personal accident, we have some registration systems and so on where you know how many people have hurt themselves and why, and that's already important on the human side, which is a good step. But the much more expensive for the insurance industry, and this is a selfish view now from my point of view, but is obviously the property claims, the damages on yachts when it's either fires or it's just a ramming, or is it some technical fault, some gearbox was jammed in advance and they hit the pier, and all those kind of things are not commonly available, this data. And so therefore we cannot really work closely with the manufacturers together as well and say, look, these are the problems that we've seen now from 1,000 claims, 200 claims have been related to gearboxes. So it's not true, but it's just an example. And therefore, maybe we could change and get less claims in the future by producing a better product.
So how would you approach that?
Well, I mean, obviously, we are calculating information and on every claim, and we are always depending on the honesty of the counterpart as well. The shipyards, the owners, the captains, the crew, that they are not scared to say what really went wrong, and the surveyors playing a big part of this. But most of that information is not shared. It's actually then kind of, I don't even know whether it's confidential or not. Probably it falls under some Data Protection Act. But if we anonymize it, I mean, if we take the names out, it would be great to have a database where this information can come together from the surveyors, the shipyards, and the manufacturers without trying to get a commercial advantage over the other one and saying, oh, look, we are the best builders and the others just build not so well. But I think it's more really to look at it as a whole and try to figure out why we have, for example, all these fire claims in the past. And how can we avoid them? That's the key of it all, because then the premiums will stay low and the people can continue to insure their boats. And there have been a lot of fire claims, and I think there is a problem with electronics on boats. There's more and more mobile phones and all kinds of little IT systems that are charged on the boat, and especially the older boats, maybe that are 20, 30 years old, they haven't been laid out to have these high voltages going through, and I assume that's one of the reasons, but it would be good to know a bit more.
So in terms of people trying to pull the information through from the captain, the engineer, the surveyor, let's say the yacht management companies, in an anonymized process, were you saying this would be a central database?
I think it would have to be. Yes, I think it would have to be, or some kind of association that is neutral would collect those, and this association can be sponsored by the stakeholders, such as shipyards, but definitely by the insurance company. I'm sure they would be happy to contribute to make sure we get some common knowledge of the claims.
Yeah, no, I think I've had this conversation with yacht managers before about actually sharing incident reports or accident reports, and they all get very nervous about the boats they have under management that have had an accident. They don't want to broadcast it too much because it reflects on their approach, their safety record. Yeah. But you're right, in any other industry, take aviation for example.
Yeah,
there's a very strict regime of reporting what happened to learn from that incident.
Yes.
That's typically done, and shipping as well, with a black box or a data recording system that actually monitors what happens on board. And there's a very strict protocol of giving the information to the authorities, so we never have the same thing happen again, in theory. In your opinion, is that feasible now? Because all the systems and technology is there.
No, it's definitely, technically it's feasible. It's what a surveyor does at the end of the day. He looks at each individual case and the information is there. Whether it's always shared is a different story, but they most of the time they can figure out what went wrong.
Yeah.
But that knowledge is lost and it's not helping the industry to get better.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% on that, 100%. I think it's an interesting topic to maybe explore as a discussion group with some surveyors and managers and captains. Actually, that's an interesting idea, and I'll explore that as part of the Superyacht Forum Live program. In terms of one of the topics I've put in there, challenges, cancellations, and consequences, the name of the one-to-one. We've had a lot of cancellations this year in terms of the charter market. How how have you, or what have you learned from that topic in terms of the way in which we can manage cancellations or anything that will become the norm in the future?
Well, if a charter is cancelled, we pay the premium back. It's as easy as that. But I think, what was interesting from my statistic is we obviously not only insure super yachts, but whenever you look at the 50-foot, 40-foot sailing yacht charter, the national charter firms have been flat out and have done incredible business in Germany. They didn't have enough boats. Whereas the international offices from them, for example, a German charter company has an office in Palma, they have been hit very hard because of the travel restrictions.
Yeah.
So I think, how can we prepare for this? As a charter company, I don't think you can really. There's nothing you can do. If there's a travel ban, then there's a travel ban. But what was clear in this, at least, situation is that the local charter companies did well on their local business, and so maybe, I don't know, maybe there is something to learn from that. I don't know, but at least that's what we saw from our end.
Okay. Going back to the topic of marinas and yachts sitting idle in marinas, and you mentioned fires in marinas, and is there an issue that needs to be addressed in terms of boats under a certain size being unmanned and unmonitored sitting in marinas?
Well, I think it's a difficult question. It really depends always on the yacht as well. How complicated are the systems? Are they normally, when we leave a boat in the marina, we don't have the shore power connected anymore, and you're gone, and that's it. You put the main switch off, and that's it. So in that case, it's all fine. But if you have a bigger yacht which requires the constant shore power and needs air conditioning so that there's no mold in the boat starting, then you cannot have no one looking after it. It's impossible. And people who do that are negligent. It's not working. And so that's why we have those fire mainly. But on a boat where there's no shore power and everything is switched off, I'd say that's okay if you want to leave it for a week or two, and then someone else can look after that.
Yeah, but I think the point is it is the larger boats that are still, say, 24 to 40 meter boats. Sometimes have got maybe one person on board, still on shore power, still running systems, which obviously. And to me, some of those production boats or semi-custom boats are the ones that are having some of the issues, especially boats maybe over 10 years old. One of the things I'm concerned about is that gives a bad reputation and a bad image if you see a GRP boat absolutely in flames in a marina.
Of course. And it's so dangerous for life of men and women.
Yeah, but I'm trying to look at, is there a possible rule change or strategic change we have to impose on marinas that are about vigilance and safety and monitoring in a more robust way?
I think it's a good idea. I haven't thought about it that you put the responsibility on the marina. For me, normally the responsibility lies with the owner. And obviously,
it's their responsibility.
Yes, no, but I think the idea is not bad because you can put pressure from the marina onto the berth holder and say, look, if your boat comes into my marina, these are the rules, bang, 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 and you have to check it, and maybe you get electrician certificates as well, every 2 years or every now and then, because at the end of the day, the problem is there's no real requirements, like in the car situation where you have a TÜV or some kind of test every year on your number plate. That doesn't exist with boats, and I do believe, especially on the electronic side, on these bilge systems and all that, they should have a more regular test, which can be certified and somehow maybe from the flag state organized or so that they can have some official testing system in place.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, another interesting topic, Martin, because I know you're a sailor and you like the sailboat market. What do you think the future is of the sailboat market? Because obviously it's gone through a massive change. I'm talking the big boats specifically, above 30 meters. What do you think is going to happen in the future of sailboats? Because obviously it's changed quite dramatically.
Yeah, I mean, I think the top end sailing boat, so 50-meter plus, is still booming. Royal Horseman is doing very well, and others, and it's incredible what you can build nowadays with the technology.
Yeah,
So there is a real, I think, revival of yachting in that respect, because it's on such another level compared to normal sailing, that it actually combines the best of both worlds, in my opinion. You have the sustainable green idea, which is the using the wind, and you have the complete luxury and space that you have on a motor yacht, if you go big enough. So you can really have all sides, and it's very stylish, and you look much better than a motorboat in the bay. But that's only my personal
well, no,
opinion.
I agree with you 100%. But I'm trying to work out, because obviously what we're looking at now is a market that's dominated by motor yachts, and motor yachts that are very, very similar in style and shape and size. Yet the sailboat market is still a very small percentage of the overall market. And
Yeah, it's because of the specialized systems and the crew that you require. I think it's just more. Either, first of all, you need to have some kind of passion. But even if someone has nothing to do with sailing boats and just likes the look of it, when he runs a yacht, a sailing yacht, there's more higher running costs, of course, because you have the mast, you have the rigging, you have all these specialized systems, especially at that size, that needs to be monitored, surveyed, and handled, operated in a much more sophisticated way.
yeah,
And so I think that what we have seen, though, in the past, is that due to the technological advancement, those operations have become slightly easier. So the rigging has become more automated. There's a little bit more room for a failure as well. So I think we're heading in the right direction. But in order to be really successful, I've seen a few designs which had no standing rigging anymore, just a mast like a surf mast, and a sail that rolls out. So these kind of sailboat concepts, and that was a 30-meter boat. They are interesting, and I think if it really gets that easy, that you only have one button and one sail, but you still can have the combination of yachting, sailing, as well as motorboat, then maybe that's the way forward. Because at the end of the day, we have to start thinking about sustainability a bit more in the industry, and about how we can justify these huge investments
yeah,
and resource consumption. And if you ask me what my wish is for the industry, I think one really big topic and which is very close to my heart, is the recycling of boats. That nobody really has cracked this yet, and it's for my opinion, for keeping the value of a yacht, for being able to build new yachts, for being able to have some kind of social conscience on the environment. I think we have to really work on the recycling and using of the resources in the yachting industry. Most of these boats are blocking the harbors in the Med. They are not used anymore. They are 30, 40 years old, and no one knows how to use them, what to do with them. And they're kind of floating Sondermüll, as we say in Germany. It's I don't know the word in English, but
no, but I know what you mean.
hard to recycle.
It is, as you say, clogging up the system. And I think it's one of those things that, if you look at the marina landscape, you have to almost ask yourself how many yachts are sitting there as zombies, having no purpose and just getting in the way. If you looked at that as a topic of recycling or upcycling, let's use a better word, upcycling, what could you do, you think, with an old boat? Have you got any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, you can build streets maybe, but the problem is it's what we really would like to have is more or less like in the car industry, where the insurers can repair older yachts with spare parts from identical models that are maybe stored somewhere. So instead of building everything new again, which is very expensive, that if you get a piece from some other boat that has been already taken out of commission, then you can combine those things. But you would need to have a big storage of a lot of boats, like a graveyard even.
Yes.
Scenario. And I think there is a business model there, and maybe you can use the plastic. I'm not sure what you can do with it, but all the metal, all the parts are obviously valuable things that could be used in the whole repair situation. That's on the old portfolio, so to say, on the existing portfolio that floats around. But I think as an industry, maybe the past is not so easy to clean up, and there are definitely some materials that you will not really be able to recycle. But for the future, I think it's so important to build a boat already with the mindset what to do with it, as we have once also discussed in your seminar. What's the full circle of it? How do you reuse the materials, or indeed are they certain concept that you can change the purpose of a boat at one point? I also thought, looking at security again, of course, boating has this huge advantage of security. We all know that there's more and more social unrest. There's a little bit of chaos in the world. And so boating will, in the future, still continue to have a very special place for many people. And I think one of the scenarios that I was thinking about during the pandemic is that what if you could live on your boat?
Yeah.
Why can't you live on your boat? How is it, instead of just using a boat for 2 weeks per year, how would you design a boat, or more like a house on water that is a boat, obviously, but how would you design that? How can you be self-sustainable? How can you use the waste? How are all these systems are all available? I mean, if you think about it, people flying to Mars soon, and they're going to try to live on Mars in a hostile atmosphere with a tent over them and never come back. I don't know how that's going to work, but still, if you then see the Earth and have a wonderful ocean, surely we must be able to build a vessel that can somehow be self-sustainable, and you can stay a whole year or 2 or 3 on it.
Yeah.
And so maybe there's a, and if you think about that, maybe with these technologies that you will use there, maybe they can come from the recycling or from the designers to think about how we can use these boats for a longer period.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think there's a definite trend appearing on the larger yachts, let's say above 70 meters, where they are becoming more like a floating sort of lifestyle. We're certainly seeing that some of the boats the owners are spending a lot more time on board. And I think that's changing the usage of the boat in terms of, as you say, how systems are built or how systems are integrated to manage waste or manage the operation. The big issue is that if you're living on board a boat for 12 months of the year, it also adds into another dimension, which is actually the crew who operate the boat. Because it's that's another topic that's worth exploring in terms of, because crew, for 12 months a year, this exhausting world to look after a family or a client and friends and stuff all year round. And we have to sort of look at that as another subject. But I think your concept of having a new way of thinking of yachting, maybe being accelerated by the pandemic, is actually very interesting. That people start building yachts, not just for the 4, 5, 6 weeks in the summer or the 2 weeks in the winter, but actually becomes a a choice, a lifestyle choice, whereby you look at the Silicon Valley people who are less about owning multiple homes or multiple cars, but having a very, very cool, sustainable, attractive residence with all the eco gadgets or the technologies. Maybe that's where yachting will go in the future. A more pure, simple, sustainable project that is about living on board. That'd be a pretty cool project, because you can then look at Hamburg and London and New York, where there's water in the city. And you
you could move there. I come for my next interview to London.
Yeah, exactly. But no, just going back to that crew topic, Martin, what are your thoughts on the current landscape in terms of the manning issues or the crew issues?
I think they're doing a great job. There's no question. There've been a lot of hardship stories, being locked up on a boat like that as a crew, and no rights to leave, and quite tough, really. But overall, I think the crew is doing a good job. The only requirement we always have is that they get their training done, that they get, especially on the hydraulics on sailing yachts, good training there, which is not always the part of any kind of course. So it would be nice to have that extended to include a few extra works on a boat within the normal training under the flag state regulations. But in general, I think, there's always room for improvement. Since MLC, obviously, that has been a big push for the welfare insurance of crew, which is good. It's the right step.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we see a lot of boats that have not adequate health insurance and accident insurance for crew members on board, and we hear of accidents where they're not treated properly and they can't be flown home to get proper medical treatment and so on. I'm sure there's still space for getting a little bit better on behalf of the crew. But in general, I think the crew is doing a good job. There's been enough regulations, I would say. We don't need to push any harder. One area I think which is important, and that is probably the cybersecurity side. There should be training, and that goes through the whole world, basically. Even in our company, we're doing cybersecurity lessons now, and the same applies for yachts as much as for other industries.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think the crew is doing well, and from our perspective, there's not much to change.
Okay, good. In terms of the future, Martin, just as a final comment, what's your expectation and forecast 5 years from now? What are you expecting?
Yeah, I as I said, I really hope that there's going to be a complete change in the approach of yacht building, that they really think more like the Greeks when they built the Acropolis. They build things for eternity. If you have a little bit, only 1% of that approach, what can we do with these boats in the long term? How is the full circle going of it? Can you repair them? Can you recycle them? What you do at the end of a lifespan with a boat? Yes. I think if that comes along, and then if you build boats that are more used as a real home or lifestyle, where they get more usage out of it, then I think we can justify all the resources as well that are put in there.
Yeah, very interesting.
And I do believe the yachting will continue, mainly because of the fact that it's a unique proposition for security, and this will become unfortunately more relevant in the future, in my opinion.
Yeah. In terms of the future, in terms of yacht insurance premiums, what's your long range forecast there?
Bring them up. No, I think we had a correction of the market since 2 years. The premium's gone up 20-30%, and so I think for the moment it's on a good level. I believe it will stay like that. But then again, if you have a few more hurricanes in the these medicans are what they're called, which open up a new can of worms, then there might be further restrictions either in cover or increase in premiums. But for the moment, I think it's feasible to keep it on that level as it is.
Yeah. And are you missing traveling?
Yes, I do actually. Yes, I do. But what can you do? It's
not forever. It's not forever.
Not forever. No. And I've missed the boat shows, by the way.
Yeah. Martin, thanks a million for your time, and I look forward to seeing you in Hamburg soon.
All right. Thank you very much for the call.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.